One of my cousins had a best friend, Yitzy. They lived across the street from each other. And I was like amazed by this boy. He had an incredible energy to him. Like he brought energy into the room. He had such joy, such kindness. And I told my mother I'm going to marry him. And I'm driving in California traffic, Googling on the freeway, which I don't recommend. And I put in like cures for ALS. And I start getting like pop-ups for preparing for the end of life, living on life support, using computers to communicate for you. And like my heart stopped. I came home and kids went inside. Yitzy met me outside and I burst out crying. I was like, this is going to be really hard. And he said, yeah, but we're not going to cry on Shabbos.
Welcome to Ordinary People with Extraordinary Stories. I'm Glenna Weisberg, host of this podcast. Joining me today, we have an incredibly brave guest. Her name is Dina Horowitz. And Dina she's going to tell us her story, but basically she is quite famous right now for living as the wife of Yitzy Horowitz, who has been sick for the past 13 years with ALS. Dina, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
There's all kinds of courage and bravery. Sometimes the courage and bravery is about just showing up day in, day out. Can you tell us a little about your life? Well, let's start with life maybe before Yitzy got sick.
Before Yitzy got sick, my husband and I, Yitzy and I, we were living in a small hick town in California called Temecula. And we had a Chabad house there for most of the time in our home. And eventually we moved out. Had a nice little Chabad house. We have 7 children. And we had a pretty ordinary life.
How did you guys meet? How did you meet each other?
How did we meet?
Yeah.
Okay. Yitzy is a Crown Heights boy, and I'm a California girl. And when I was going into 9th grade, I petitioned my parents to send me to Crown Heights for school. I was one of five girls in my class, and I grew up in a Chabad house where there were no friends that I could walk over to, or it was just kind of lonely. So I went to Beis Rivka in Crown Heights for 9th grade and lived at my cousin's house. And one of my cousins had a best friend, Yitzy Horowitz. They lived across the street from each other. I was 14, he was 16. And I was like amazed by this boy. He had an incredible energy to him. Like he brought energy into the room. He had such joy, such kindness. And I told my mother I'm going to marry him. And he was like, come over. And I would like quietly turn red and not say anything. And I obviously didn't marry him then, but he is the only one I dated. We got married 7 years later. I was 21. He was just before he turned 24. And yeah, he's really the only one that was in my mind for all those years. So whenever somebody asked me, like, what are you looking for? I described him.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was it like, were you different than him in personality? I heard you say you're more of an introvert. He's more of an extrovert. Is that what
Yes.
like attracted you?
I think so, actually. Like he seems so like free with his joy. And if I had joy, it was pretty contained. I was he was the talker amongst the two of us. So he really brought me out of my shell, but I was more of a homebody. He got energy from being around other people. I needed energy after being around other people.
I can relate to that.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Right.
So
wow.
we were, but I think in a certain way, we were very similar. We had similar dreams about what we wanted to do, what we found meaningful in life.
And your goals to go out on shlichus, you went to a small place.
We did. We went to a small place, and like it was just, I feel like it was like a pure life, like we knew what we were doing, or we knew we had a mission, and it wasn't an easy place. It was very middle class neighborhood, a lot of intermarriage. A lot of people move there not to find their Jewish roots.
Get
That's not
away.
really where that's
Right.
not where you go to find your Jewish roots. But it was like very meaningful and simple.
Do you look back at that time with a little bit of nostalgia and longing?
A lot of nostalgia and longing. I don't go back to that place because I find it
Mhm.
very difficult.
Mhm.
Um, but we've changed in who we are, and I guess it's more obvious how I've changed because Yitzy's quieter, so I
Mhm.
had to become the speaker among the two of us.
Mhm.
And I understand that God gives us challenges to help us grow. I understand that up to a point,
Mhm.
and we did. We grew, and then like at a certain point, you feel like you're done growing, and now it's just trauma.
How do you feel you grew from your situation?
I feel like I was very small.
Mm.
Um, I grew up in a generation where women are the mitzvah girls and the people pleasers, and it's our job to help other people. And there is a certain beauty to that, but it's definitely not like the bottom line is God put us in this world, and we're the only person we're in charge of. And keeping ourselves small to make other people happy is not really enough. Like we're
Mm.
supposed to grow into all the parts of ourselves. I'm not
Mhm.
saying I'm there,
Hmm.
but I definitely am further along than I was before.
Did you find different parts of yourself that you grew into that you didn't experience before?
I did. I did. I found my voice and then I lost my voice and now I'm finding it again
Yeah.
because life is like that.
What was your
Um,
voice the voice that spoke for both of you, or was it your own voice? Like you mentioned
so
before that
for
you
a
had to become.
while, yeah, for a while it was both of us. And in first of all, it became just Yitzy.
Mhm.
I was his voice. And
What did that
I
mean?
would well, it wasn't about me at all.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
was the translator between Yitzy and the rest of the world.
Mhm.
Um, and in a way, like parts of me stopped existing for a while so that I could be like a proper transmitter of his message.
Mhm.
And for a while, I thought maybe that's what I'm supposed to do. But that process really created a lot of other issues that were not. It didn't feel like this is really what God wants of me to just be Yitzy's voice.
And how are you now, your own voice?
How am I now? Okay, so I had a speaking career before COVID. I spoke
Mhm.
a lot about joy and faith and choices. Um, and it was a beautiful message. But over COVID, we had a lot of isolation. I had a tremendous amount of sleep deprivation because we did not have nurses. Um,
It must have been so
and
hard.
it was really hard, actually. Like, I view it like the dark night of my soul. It
Mm.
felt like a New York winter where everything is just gray.
Mm. Mm.
All the color disappeared, all the creativity disappeared, all the parts of my personality that I thought make me me
Mm.
also disappeared. And it was like, we just have to survive this. And
Right.
surviving is really important, but it's also important to move past survival
Mhm.
and to, there's kind of like a death and rebirth throughout life where this version of you isn't working anymore and you have to kind of bury it and find a new version. And the process is really, really painful. Um, but in the finding the new parts of yourself, it's kind of interesting to see how much more you could become and the different parts of you. And now when I speak about surviving survival mode. And I learned a tremendous amount in the process of trying to figure out what on earth is going on with me
Mm.
about surviving, about what happens biologically, what happens to our brain and to our body, and how to, first of all, survive that, but also help yourself through it so that you could get through it, because you can't skip it. There's
Hmm.
no skipping in life. You have to go through all the phases.
Right.
So now
100%.
I get to share the wisdom of what I learned, and this is my message. And it's
Right.
not really about Yitzy, this message. It's not about love and faith. It's really about compassion
Compassion for yourself, compassion
for
for,
yourself. Right.
right.
So we are kind of divided. We have this incredible soul that's in this world for a very important mission, and we're the only one that can do it. And it's a
Mm,
hard one. I'm not like, I know that Jewish people in the past have gone through a lot, but I also kind of feel like the easy tests have all been done. And now
mhm,
we're like at level 10 tests, and we're all really
mm,
tested to our limits. And it's hard, but our souls understand. Our souls are not fighting the trauma. Our souls are there for this mission. And then there's our body and our brain that live in this world and doesn't understand what this mission is about. And we suffer from the compassion, from the trauma of it all, from
mhm.
the, you know, and there has to be a lot of compassion for ourselves and for our experiences, and very little judgment. And we're also good at judging.
Oh,
I'm
for
not sure
sure.
where that comes from, but
For sure.
um,
Well,
and for women, I think we judge ourselves really,
mm,
really harshly.
totally.
And I don't think that's ever helped anybody ever.
100%. 100%. I want to get more into that, but I want you to first explain to our viewers a little bit more about when you found out about Yitzy getting sick and what was it all about for those who don't know.
Okay, so Yitzi was, he was just past 40, and he was working a lot of jobs. The economy in Temecula, where we lived, was not doing well. There was a housing crisis, and a lot of the people in our community lost their jobs, lost their homes. So he took on a few more jobs to make ends meet. Jewish education is really expensive.
Right.
So there's that. One of the
For
jobs that
all
he,
those people who think that shluchim, go to a place and they get sponsored by the main central place, that's not how it works.
not at all.
Not
And
all.
we, first of all, we pay a tremendous amount. Like, I drove 200 miles a day. So gas was at its
Wow.
highest then.
Just to
So
get to the
that
schools for
just
your
at the
children.
school. And then later, when they went to schools in Los Angeles, we had to pay for room and board, which is also
Mhm. Mhm.
a significant amount of
Huge
money. So
amount.
yeah, there's no magic for that.
Mm.
Um, so Yitzi had two other jobs aside for being a Chabad rabbi. One of them was he worked at a state mental facility for the criminally insane as a chaplain.
Mm.
And it was also like, everything was far from where we lived. So it was like 2 hours away, and he would go there every day. He would give classes, he would do counseling, he would do holiday programs. And then
Wow.
at night, he would work at a dairy farm where they milk cows, and they need a rabbi there to supervise the kosher, the kashrut of it.
Mm.
So he would sleep in his car every night and wake up like once an hour, make sure cows are still cows, all the pipes are clean, everything is going as it's supposed to. Come back, take a shower, give a class in Temecula, do things, and run back to the state mental facility. It was a very, very busy, chaotic, exhausting life. We really only had him to ourselves on Shabbos.
Wow.
And
Wow.
um, one day he said to me that he feels like there's something wrong with his tongue. Every so often, his speech is just slurred. And it was really interesting. At his 40th birthday, somebody came over to me and said, well, now that he's 40, he's an adult, and it's time to start taking care of your health. And it was such a weird thing to say. And so I told him, maybe you need to sleep in bed. Like,
Mm.
maybe you're just really exhausted. So he had to change his schedule, which obviously meant financial changes as well. And for a little while, this helped. And then it came back, and we started going to doctors. We went to doctors for a while until they finally discovered that it was ALS, and his version was called bulbar onset ALS. He was diagnosed on his 41st birthday. And
And what did that mean for you when he was diagnosed?
so Yitzy is like Superman. He has a lot of energy. He never gets sick.
Hmm.
And I really couldn't wrap my head around this. He had a lot of faith. Like, I don't like, he did not get depressed. He didn't break down. He just felt like this is my current mission and I have to use it for as good as I can do, right? As a platform to help other people going through hard times, whatever I can do in this sickness, I will do. And I'm sure there will be a miracle, whether it just
Mm-hmm.
be outright miracle or a cure. They find cures all the time to different diseases. This cannot, this can't last long.
Mm-hmm. Did you Google
Um,
right away, like all the different things about it? Dr. Google?
right. So this, I was actually, I went with him to all the doctor's appointments except this one because it was on a Friday and I went to Los Angeles to pick up our kids to bring them home for Shabbos. We had 4 kids going to school in Los Angeles at the time.
How old were your children at the time?
We have 7 children, and our oldest was 16 and our youngest was 6.
Wow.
So all in between there.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm driving in California traffic, Googling on the freeway, which I don't recommend.
You don't recommend Googling on the freeway or Googling?
On the
Or
freeway,
both?
on the freeway.
Okay.
And I put in like cures for ALS, and I start getting like pop-ups for preparing for the end of life, living on life support, using computers to communicate for you, and like my heart stopped.
Wow.
I put away my phone and I was like, I can't do this. Like this is, um, I can't, I didn't say anything to the kids, obviously. I came home and the kids went inside. Yitzy met me outside and I burst out crying. I was like, this is going to be really hard. And he said, yeah, but we're not going to cry on Shabbos. Because it was like shortly before Shabbos then. Which he's really good at doing that. Like he just like the second Shabbos was over, I was a mess again.
Wow.
I even had to go off coffee. Like anybody who knows me knows that that's bad. My system was so frazzled, and
Right.
I was so full of anxiety. I couldn't imagine what this could mean for us.
Right.
And I guess that was a kindness that I didn't know exactly what it would. And when he got his official diagnosis, it was on his birthday, and we made a Farbrengen. We scheduled this Farbrengen before, and we were so sure that this Farbrengen was going to be like gratitude to Hashem for giving us a different diagnosis, and not
Right.
that.
Right.
And I really was a wreck, to put it kindly. I knew at this point I had to tell our kids what's going on, and this is going to change their life forever. And I told Yitzy, I really cannot deal with your Farbrengen. He's like, no problem, I'll deal with it. And like I said, we live far away. 350 at least rabbis, Chabad rabbis, showed up to this Farbrengen.
Because they knew that he was diagnosed, or it just
Yeah.
Right.
Word had got out, and they came to give him support.
Wow.
And so many of them have told me over the years, like, we thought we're going to come in there and find like a broken person and give him support, but he ended up giving us support. So focused on, okay, so this is where I'm at now. What can I do from here? I was not like that. It was really different for me.
Understandably, for sure.
First of all, I think there's something biological with women, mothers. that they need a safe place for their children.
Right.
And my place just became very unsafe,
For
very
sure.
unknowable. They had given us a diagnosis that said Yitzy was going to live for 2 years.
Mm.
And the kids were really young. I was really not so brave. Like I didn't think that I could do this by myself. I was pretty
Mhm.
sure that when he dies, I'm going to die. Um, um, there was a lot of changes, a lot of changes. First of all, we thought we're like isolated in our little Chabad house, and we found out that we're really surrounded by so much love.
Mm.
And um, people stepped in. They stepped in like people we didn't even know about, we didn't know well, and they carried us. They're still carrying us. Like they said, you know what, Dina, we're going to take care of all the finances. We're going to do the medical research for you. We're going to do everything. You raise your children, you take care of your husband. And it's still happening now. There's just like this feeling of being caught when you're falling,
Mm.
like a safety net around us that really has saved us in many ways.
That's incredible.
On the other hand, like we knew we couldn't stay in Temecula. Yitzy's speech was the first thing to go, and
Mm.
it's a small community, and they needed a rabbi that can do rabbi things, and
Mhm.
we needed more support. So we
Sure.
decided to move to Los Angeles. We had 4 kids in school here, so we figured this is going to be the least amount of upheaval.
Mhm.
Even though I didn't really know many people in Los Angeles, it was very new for us. And we moved to an apartment from a nice, beautiful house, but this was wheelchair accessible, which we didn't need a wheelchair yet. I felt like I don't have enough faith because I have to plan for a wheelchair, but we had to plan for
Mm.
a wheelchair.
Mhm.
And we moved right next door to the Chabad yeshiva, which to me was like, I like my privacy, you
Mm.
know? Like anytime I'm out in the public, I have to come home to my privacy. And my bedroom window opens up to like their playground,
Oh,
their parking
wow.
lot, their playground. I remember like opening my curtains one day and my son was like on the porch in yeshiva learning. And he's like, oh, hey, mom. I was like,
Wow.
there's no way we're going to survive this. But this has
Right.
been such a big blessing for us being next door to yeshiva.
Well, your home has also become so open. I mean, people are constantly coming in. I see so many videos of people coming in to visit Yitzy, singers, musicians, just people to share their stories, to visit him. How has that
Right.
been like for you? I mean, on the one hand, that's such a blessing. On the other hand, I'm sure for a private person, that could be
Right.
difficult as well.
Both.
Yeah, right.
Definitely both.
Right.
So when we were like moving here, Yitzi spoke to this very smart rabbi friend that we have, and he said, I've always been a doer. I've always been a person of action. I
Mm,
don't know how to be without
mm,
that. Like,
mhm,
what is my life in Los Angeles going to be like? And this rabbi told him that his father was a man of action as well, and at a certain point had a stroke and
mhm,
wasn't able to do much else. And he felt like just sitting and learning Torah, he's like wasting his time. He could be doing so much. And
mm,
he got a letter from the Rebbe saying, if you knew how much good comes from learning Torah, you would be so happy to do it.
mm,
So he told this to my husband, and this really changed his life
mm,
because my husband's focus has always been on teaching Torah, and it was always through his speech. Um, and now his speech was unavailable, and this became through his writing, first with his one thumb on his iPhone and then with his eyes on his computer. And we have so many people that come over here and learn with Yitzi. because we're next door to school, first of all, they have a class in his
Mhm.
room daily for
Wow.
years.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. And a lot of the teachers and some of the boys have been throughout the years, it changes, but come over at certain times a week and learn with him. And all this learning turned into his teachings and his words that he's shared with everybody
And I know
that,
he had a column on Chabad.org for a long time teaching the Parsha with Rabbi Yitzy Horowitz, right?
but through his writing.
Through his writing, of course, through
And
his
and
writing.
this and this writing took him like 30 hours of intense focus with his eyes just to write it, not to
Right.
prepare for it.
Wow.
And all of this is, God willing, going to be coming out in a book really soon.
Really?
So we're
Wow, that's
excited about
incredible.
that. Yeah.
A
So for
book about
6 years,
Yitzy, a book about Yitzy's life and your life
well, a book with his Devar Torahs that he
with
wrote
his Devar
every week,
Torahs.
6 years,
Beautiful. Wow.
and then some of the book is dedicated to Yitzi's life as well.
Mhm. Mhm. Wow. Wow. So you moved to Los Angeles, and I guess, like, how was it for the children? It must have been a big shift that their father, this energetic father that was full of life, now became the way he was.
It was a really big shift for them, and like it wasn't immediate, but it definitely was quite progressive.
Mhm.
But at the same time, we moved to Los Angeles, and this was exciting for them. They never
Mhm.
had Jewish neighbors.
Mhm.
Like the idea of knocking on a neighbor's door and asking for an egg was so exciting for them. They were like, "Do we need anything? Do we need anything? Can I ask the neighbors?" Like it was really exciting for them.
Wow.
Um, so there were parts of it that were so exciting that it distracted from other parts of it. The ones that lived away from home were so happy to live at home again.
Mhm.
They volunteered me to do all the carpooling the first few years because I had to make up for never being able to do the carpooling.
Right.
And I think kids are really, really resilient. They're really resilient and they just went with the flow.
Hmm. I
Over a
heard you
year,
say
yeah, go
no,
ahead.
no, 'cause I heard you saying once that your children are all happy. What do you attribute to that, that they became all happy, well-adjusted children, who are
So
now adults?
I'm not I'm not going to say that they're always happy. They have their struggles and they
Mhm.
also have other struggles. Like God doesn't give each family one problem.
Mhm.
Like that would be nice.
Right.
And they also have, personalities and teenagers and like there's shifts that every human goes through and they happen to go through theirs in a life that's a lot more public than other people's and that was really hard for them.
Mhm. They're also
Um,
private people like you, they
they're
take more after
really
you?
private people
Yeah.
and I think they fight against the publicity more. So like they're all like talented musicians, but they will not play in front of anybody.
Hmm.
And my son got
Interesting.
married, and I thought maybe you would want to play guitar at your wedding and sing. And he's like, why would I do that? Like, why would I want to?
Really?
Do you not
Wow.
even know us? So they kind
Yeah,
of like became extremely private um, because of this. And this is how it is now. Who knows what the future will bring?
right.
Um, and and I try to be very respectful of their need for that. I also have that need, and I like to choose my publicity. So when
Yeah,
somebody calls and says, "Hey, I'm coming to your house and I'm bringing my class. Can you talk to us?" I'm like, "No, it's not on my time right now. Like I can't.
right.
I used to be there 100% of the time,
Mhm.
and I realized that for my sanity, I have to protect myself."
Mhm.
And I have to choose my chaos. Like
Mhm.
I'm not obligated to invite that into my life because you want it.
Sure. For sure. I
So
is it hard for you?
in a way, what it means is I have to have strong boundaries.
Right.
And for people pleasers and good little
That's
mitzvah girls,
that
that's
could be
not
very hard,
that
right?
doesn't come naturally. Yes.
Right. Um, is it hard for you to share your story? Is it hard for you to tell it?
There are parts of it that are hard for me. There's parts of it that I don't talk about publicly. But I also feel that the reason that I share my story is because I know everybody has a story.
Mm.
And if I can't be honest about how hard it is, how am I helping anybody? Like, we don't get to sugarcoat our lives.
Right.
So I push myself past my comfort zone to where I think honesty and privacy can be synchronized
Mm-hmm.
and not go beyond that point.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, we don't like to talk about how lonely it is,
Mm.
but it is. Anybody who has become a caregiver instead of a spouse knows that this is a really lonely life. You're giving 100% of the time and you're not receiving
Mm-hmm.
um, basic things like conversation, support, because you're the supporter. And
Mm-hmm.
so who supports you?
So what do you do
It's,
for that?
it's,
How do you solve that problem?
well, first I sat with it for a long time and just didn't know what to do with it. And it created a huge imbalance in my life. And I think balance is the key.
Mm-hmm.
And then um, I met some incredible people. I met some new friends and a lot of friends who have been through their own really difficult situations. Some of them who are still going through it. And we can be 1,000% honest with each other, really see each other and our experience with zero judgment and be held, which is important, and
Mm-hmm.
also be a supporter.
Mm-hmm. Is that what you would recommend to somebody who is a caregiver now, who is going through their own situation of being a constant caregiver, that they should have the support system, that they should take care of their own needs?
I definitely recommend that, but even as I recommend it doesn't mean that people have it.
Right.
Like, some people are really on their own.
Right. It's hard to find that support system and that even people who understand what you're going through.
And it's hard to feel like you're a burden because this has been going on forever.
Right.
Well, not forever,
Right.
for 13 years. And most of us help people through challenges and they get through the challenges. And there's like a lot of different parts of a relationship. There's the joy parts and the hard parts. And this hard part, I often like pull back from my friends because there's so much hard and they
Mm-hmm.
also have hard. Why would I want to put that on them? But that's my own insecurities, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, first of all, you have to learn how to be there for yourself. That's really the primary. You have to
Yeah.
learn how to take care of the parts of you that are not getting taken care of to the best of your capacity.
Mm. It's also sometimes hard to be a receiver, especially if you're constantly giving,
It is
to
hard to be a receiver. It is really hard, and to do it with grace because it does get uncomfortable
mm-hmm.
and it's still somebody else's kindness that you're receiving.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting because we often ask God for help, and when He gives it to us, we feel uncomfortable with it.
Right.
So we have to we need help, and we are
Right.
happy to have it. And sometimes it's uncomfortable.
And sometimes you have to say to yourself, like, my giving is allowing someone to give to me. Like, that's also my giving in this world. My giving is right now receiving.
That's true, and that still gets hard to do after so many years.
Right. For sure.
Yeah.
100%. Well, I want to understand, like, how has your vision of time changed? I mean, you've been doing this for 13 years. What does time mean for you, like now? Has it changed? Is
It
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 day in, day
has
out? Is it just one day at a time? Like, how do you look at time?
sometimes I feel like the days are hard and the years are beautiful.
Hmm.
Um, it is different. I've never really thought of it that way, so I have to give it some thought.
Mhm.
Um, right now, my kids are older, my youngest is 19. My oldest is 29. There's a lot of
Mm.
things that come with your children growing up and not needing you as much. That's
Mhm.
hard for moms.
For sure. That's a whole other stage of, like, change, right?
Right. So I did ask them, like, what do you need of me now? They're like,
Right.
oh, we need a chef and we need sometimes a taxi, pick us up from the airport, bring us back to the
Right.
airport. It's like, really? But occasionally we need advice.
Sometimes some
Um,
money.
definitely,
Right.
always. Yeah.
Right.
Um, so there's finding a new identity is constant
Mhm.
in life. Um, and finding your new balance. Like now that it's this way, how do I fill up my days? How do I fill up myself? And
Mhm.
it's easy for me to give to my kids. It's hard for me when they don't need me, which is probably not unusual for mothers.
Right.
I do get to be a grandmother, and
Mm.
sadly, they live on the other side of the country, but I get to see
Oh,
them as much as possible. And that's really, really loving for me.
right.
Um,
That's beautiful.
so
You mentioned. Yeah. Go ahead.
my actual days are not
Mhm.
full. Like I can
Mhm.
fill them with anything that I want, and I find that there are many times where I'm too tired to do that
Mm.
because I do recognize that I've been through extreme traumas. I mean,
Right.
let me give you an example of how that is. When you are preparing for a storm,
Mm.
you lock down your windows and your doors and you make sure you have extra food and you really hunker down during the storm and it passes and you open up your windows and you just go about your life.
Mm.
Now, for some people, the storm comes once a week. And when
Mm.
that happens, it's just a constant disruption. And there's not like an even flow in your life. And then you're like, do I bother opening up the windows?
Mm.
And then
Mhm.
there's some people that it's just a really, really long storm. And even when the windows are open, you don't know if it's safe to go out.
Mm.
And that is what living with trauma is like. I have my windows are open right now, even though I'm still within it. And it just feels hard to go back into the world
Mhm.
and to be normal, whatever that looks like.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
wow, that you described it so well, and so, the description of the metaphor is so real. So how do you find joy in your life?
Um, joy is like a hard one for me because it feels like there's a lot of very heavy things. So for a while I was like, let's like put joy aside and let's just settle with peace. Where could I find
Mm.
peace in my life?
Mhm.
That's an important step. Like I find it very peaceful to be in nature.
Mhm.
Nature is like there's a life cycle to nature and there's like no emotions about it. It's
Mhm.
winter, it's fall, plants grow and they die and it's just there. Like there
Mm.
isn't all this heaviness and there's like this is the cycle of life.
Mhm.
And it's I find it very peaceful in nature. And for me that's really important.
Mhm.
There's a story that I love about this rabbi who found his granddaughter in the forest praying. And he said, "What are you doing here?" And she said, "I'm praying." And he said, "Don't you know that the same God that's here is in the synagogue?" And she says, "I do know that, but not the same me."
Mm.
So when I feel connected to God is when I feel peaceful.
Right. Interesting. I mean, the
And then,
Hasidim used to go out in the forest, right? They used to
yes,
go out and meditate in the forest, speak to God in the forest.
and meditation is also a big one.
Mhm.
Meditation is really, really important.
Mhm.
Sometimes, like your brain can be so loud that you find it hard to meditate. There's a lot of beautiful meditations that you can do, like on YouTube, guided
Mhm.
meditations, which are very good. But I think it's important. Those things are important. Meditation and being in nature. And I think once I could find pockets of peace, then I could look for pockets of joy. And it's not like I need to have a joyful existence, but can I find moments of joy in my life? Which I
Mhm.
do.
Mhm.
I do. Um, I I have kids that are really funny,
Mm.
and thank God we had a wedding this year. That was unbelievable.
Beautiful.
And we have our little grandkids, and that is very joyful. Um, I myself have was introduced to an incredible woman who does breathwork retreats. Her
Mhm.
She does a men's retreat, she does a women's retreat, and I went to this, and to be surrounded by women that are willing to be completely open and vulnerable and honest
Mhm. Wow.
is its own kind of medicine. And then I went back as staff, and being able to help people heal from trauma, I find very meaningful and purposeful. And with purpose, I think does come some joy,
Hmm. Very true.
even though it's hard because we're dealing with the trauma. But the point is not the trauma, the point is letting it go.
Right. So I'm wondering about your relationship with God. How has it changed over the years? How has it developed and matured?
So like over the years, relationships change and you change. And so expecting everything to be the same is ridiculous. Nothing stays the same. The only rule that is constant is
Mhm.
that everything changes.
Sure.
So depending on where I was, that's how my relationship with God was. And when we were young, we were taught that anger is bad. Like we're as Jewish people, you're not supposed to be angry, even to the point where they call it idol worship.
Mhm.
And the reason for that is because if somebody does something wrong to you and you're angry at them, it's like you're saying God's not in control.
Mhm.
So, what I wish they would teach us is that it's perfectly okay to be angry at God.
Mhm.
And even in
So
the
ho
Torah, it says God was angry,
Mhm.
right? I
So
always have,
how do you reconcile your anger at God with your faith
well, I'm
or
not
with your
always angry with God. I just feel that like we have a fluid relationship.
Mm. Mhm.
So sometimes I am, most often I'm not. In general, I'm not an angry person.
Mhm.
Um, but I talk to God about it.
Mhm.
Like not by doing the regular prayers every day, by talking to God, by actually
Mhm.
talking to him wherever I may be, in my bed, in the car, sitting in nature, talking to God. And what I did realize is often when you're disconnected from yourself, from your heart, you're disconnected from God.
Mhm.
So intellectually, you can know that God is there, but if you can't feel your heart, you can't feel God. And opening your heart is risky
Mhm.
because it gets hurt. But you living a life without your heart is not really living a life. So this is where I think for me courage has to come in, to be brave enough to open myself to all of it, the pain, the joy, my experience, other people's experience. And within that open heart is where I find God.
That's beautiful. That's really beautiful. Dina, I remember you just reminded me, many years ago, I was speaking in California on courage, challenges, hardships, and in walks this young woman. And you know who she was? You. And I was like, "Oh my
When was
gosh,
this?
this was years ago in where in Long Beach, California, many many
Long
years
Beach
ago.
or was it like in Huntington Beach for my father?
Huntington Beach. Yes, I'm
Huntington
sorry,
Beach. Okay.
Huntington Beach. Yes. And I was floored. I was like, "What in the world am I going to be saying? She's the one that should be up here instead of me." I was so embarrassed, but
To my father, I'm still a little girl. So you're the professional there.
Eh, so what would you tell somebody who's going through a challenge? Like, what should someone focus what gives you the strength to focus? I mean, you spoke about opening your heart and having conversations with God and being open and true. Is that what gives you the strength to continue day in, day out, every day? Like, what inspires you? What opens your heart? Is there a teaching? Is there a phrase? Is there a story that you keep in mind when things get really hard?
So there's two primary things that keep me focused. And And even as I say, keep me focused, you do have to recognize that there's a lot of lack of focus within that. Like, I always
Mm-hmm.
have to go through the dark period to figure it out. And the
Mm-hmm.
dark periods are really dark. And I wouldn't say I'm surviving then, but I am because I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
But my kids
Mm-hmm.
keep me grounded, focused, make me want to be somebody that they could be proud of. And then understanding that this is like a soul mission. And
What do you mean by that?
like we come into this world for a purpose, many purposes probably, and we have to go through what we have to go through.
Mm-hmm.
And hiding from it might be prolonging it. I don't know. But it's definitely not going through what we have to go through.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I do have, like, now more than before, compassion for myself when it feels like I'm not surviving. And I also have a knowledge that so far I've survived every day.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a pretty
Wow.
good track record, even though not every day looks like it, feels
Mm-hmm.
like it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know if there's like a story or phrase that keeps me going. Um, Maybe the fact that I'm stubborn.
That's good. The Jewish people are called kashay arif. We're stubborn people, right? That's what keeps us through
Yeah,
all the exiles.
yeah. I remember like at the beginning of this illness, like having a conversation with God saying, I know you're doing this so that we change and we grow, but I am not going to grow. And I'm going to prove to you that you're wasting your time.
And yet you
We
look back at
definitely have
yourself
changed.
and you see how much you've grown.
Yeah. And I also miss that version of me,
That
you
innocent
know,
version, that young
very
version.
innocent,
Right.
very young, very, yeah, she was
Of
cute.
course. So
She was,
you said
yeah.
you see it as a soul mission. Do you find purpose and meaning in what you're going through?
In the times where I could really like feel my heart, and there's a lot of acceptance and knowledge that this is where I need to be right now.
Mhm.
And um, there's, I think, a beauty to it in a way, um, a beautiful disaster actually. But I do feel peace with it. And then in the times where I can't feel my heart, I just don't understand what is going on and how can this last forever. And
Of
I'm
course.
reading a book right now called Ambiguous Loss,
Mhm.
and having a loss that doesn't really have definitions, and it doesn't have like a time frame and like a mathematical equation to it,
Mhm.
means that dealing with it also doesn't have a mathematical equation for it, and it's like unknown how to deal with it. So I guess what I'm doing is a study in how to deal with it. And some days I'm dealing with it, and some days I'm like, well, that's definitely not how to deal with it.
You
Yeah.
sound quite human, Dina. That's like the human
We're all
experience.
having a very human
Yeah,
experience.
right.
Yeah.
And yet you say, I mean, you just said a moment ago that you sometimes could see beauty in it. And I'm curious about that. Can you elaborate?
Um, I see my children and I see their capacity for love and for compassion for other people.
Mm,
And I feel like that's miraculous,
mm,
like absolutely miraculous. Um, at my son's wedding on the way home, I was driving my kids home and I was like, I think the fact that we can be that truly happy is a miracle. Like,
absolutely.
it wasn't like a wedding of broken people.
Hmm.
It was a wedding of huge hearts who have been through a lot and are like just so happy with the joy that they have, watching their sibling get married, welcoming a new person into our family. Um, there is there is beauty amongst the disaster, definitely. And the
Wow.
friendships that we found. Like most
Mm,
of my really, really, really close friends, I met in the last 2.5 years. And I met them
mm,
all because of my husband.
mm,
Um, and because of how many people come through our life because of him and the opportunities that we get because of him,
mhm.
this has opened up a lot for us.
Right. Wow. Do you have dreams for the future?
I do.
You do.
I do. I do. I feel like life asks a lot of women. And I just would love to have a place in nature where women can come and just breathe and be taken care of.
Mm.
And like maybe hold a baby goat while they're doing that. Like I think that centers us a lot to be in nature and we need to be taken care of, definitely.
Right. Do you have any messages for people who are like what people should know about caregivers? That you'd like people to know about your situation or misconceptions that people might have about illness in general, caregivers in general, or particularly ALS?
So first of all, I think that people do think that you should be used to it by now. You should be
Mm,
good at it by now.
mhm,
But like let's say you're holding a water bottle, it's not heavy. You could hold it for hours. You could probably hold it for days. But over time, you have to put it down sometimes. It becomes too heavy for you to bear. And things that were easy for me 5 years ago are hard for me today. I'm
mhm,
older. Like
mhm,
I was 38 when Yitzy got sick. I'm 51 now. It's a long time.
mm. You look so young, yeah, Tina. Going back to our previous conversation, yeah. Right,
I
it is a
guess
long time.
it's good genetics because it's definitely not stress, not lack of
Right.
stress. There there is like cycles to caregiving, just like throughout life. And there are times where it flows, and there are times where you need more for
Mhm,
yourself. And there's a lot of people that have a hard time with how I deal with my trauma because they would
mm,
deal with it differently.
mm,
So there has to be like very little judgment involved
mhm,
because everybody is trying to survive. No matter
mhm,
what's going on, we're trying to survive. And we all find coping mechanisms to help us survive, which is really like hardwiring in our brain. This is why people have addictions, because when you're trying to survive something, your brain looks for moments of reprieve.
mhm,
And addictions give you moments of reprieve. And they don't have to be terrible addictions. They could just be you're on your phone too much,
mhm,
you eat too much, or,
mhm.
you know,
Retail therapy.
retail therapy. Yeah. Um, first of all, to understand biologically what's happening, you're trying to survive and you're trying to find reprieve from the pain and from
Mhm,
the challenges of it. I think
mhm,
if we understand like the biology of trauma and how it changes the brain, it helps us understand the people going through
mhm,
what they're going through. And if we could move from a place of compassion versus judgment, that's always helpful for every aspect of your life.
mhm.
Um,
Very, very true. Very true. Is there a message that you want to send to people who are listening to this? Something that you want people to take out of this interview, to get from this interview?
First of all, I'd like people to have compassion for themselves, which I must have brought up a dozen times in this talk. That we are humans in this world having an experience that's on a godly level that we don't understand, and we have to go along with it. And it could be very painful, and there has to be like a certain amount of patience, compassion, and love in that equation. The other thing is that there are ways to help yourself. So life is like we're in a pressure cooker, And if you don't let out the steam every so often, it leads to a disaster. So we have to find ways to let out the steam. And there's a lot of ways out there. Like 30 years ago, there weren't words for most of these things. Trauma was just what happens in the emergency room. We didn't
Mm.
understand what is going on. We didn't have words for it, but now we have words for it.
Right.
And we talked a little bit about meditation and about nature. Breathing is important, like really just focusing on your breathing. Breath work is an incredible gift. Um, Journaling, having a gratitude journal, no matter how hard things are, there's always something to be grateful for. I know
Mm.
there's like some scientific studies that show if you journal, if you have a gratitude journal, like for 5 minutes before bed, you tend to sleep better.
Mm.
Can't say if it's true, but definitely it's good for you.
Mhm.
Um, Walking, movement. This is very good because life sometimes gets you stuck,
Mm.
and we need to have a movement in our body. So I'm not saying brisk walk. Brisk walking kind of symbolizes to your system that you are being chased,
Mm.
which puts you back into like fight or flight mode. So nice, gentle walks. Um, receiving
Mm.
love and kindness is really, really helpful. Being able to receive. Um, there's a lot of modalities of healing. There's a lot of
Mm.
somatic work where you allow yourself to feel your feelings and they don't last forever. I have
Mhm.
a lot of people over the years have told me that they're afraid to cry because once they start, they'll never stop. You will stop. You have to
Mm.
get it out. You have emotions that are not you. You're not your emotions, but you feel your emotions. You feel your feelings, but you're not your feelings. And you do need to feel them. Like sometimes we understand feelings, sometimes we don't. Like when people are happy at a wedding, we get that. When people are sad at a funeral, we get that too. When people are sad at the supermarket, we don't understand it. But these are all information about what's going on in your life and what you have to deal with. And by not
Mm.
dealing with it, you're not letting it pass through you. And it
Mm.
has to pass through you. So you have to feel your emotions. You have to feel your feelings, but you also have to know that you're not your feelings.
Mhm. Right.
So I think
Eh,
there's like a lot of honesty involved
Mhm.
and um, curiosity as to what is going on in my life. Um, and I guess bravery to deal with it, to feel it.
Mm.
It's hard to feel
Right. Mm. You're very brave, Dina. Um,
sometimes.
sometimes. Is there is there some advice that you can give to people who want to feel God in their life, but may not feel so strongly or intuitively the connection that you spoke about, but want that connection deeply?
So, first of all, you have to be connected to yourself. You have to be connected to your heart if you're going to feel anything, including God. If your heart is closed, it's closed to everything.
Mhm.
It's not that easy to just get connected to your heart. Sometimes it starts with 5 minutes a day of closing your eyes and just feeling. And sometimes you hear a song and it opens your heart, or you dance, or you do art, or play music, or go out in nature. Once your heart is open, I think it's easy to feel God.
Mhm.
The hard part is getting your heart open.
Mhm.
The scary part is getting your heart open. And some people couldn't afford to have an open heart in their entire life because they were not safe enough to feel.
Mhm.
So before you can feel, you have to be safe. Um, I started studying something called SRT, self regulation therapy, which is connected to the somatic healing. And the first two steps are you have to focus, are your feet flat on the ground?
Mhm.
And the second step is, where do you have support? Are you supported? And you're sitting in a chair. So it's talking about like your back and your bottom and your legs. Are you supported? And before you could feel any feelings, you have to know, are you on stable ground?
Mhm.
Like if you are running for your life, it's not time to feel your feelings.
Mhm.
If you're surviving a hurricane, you're not you're not safely planted on the ground. You're on a roller coaster, and this is not the time to feel your feelings. This is the time to like hunker down and make sure that you survive this. And then the next question is, where do you have support?
Mhm.
And even though it's talking about a chair, I think like if we are unsupported at all in our lives, it's also really hard to be brave because it's dangerous. If you
Mhm.
fall, nobody's catching you. So you have to focus on like, what do I have to support me? And honestly, it could be a chair.
Mhm.
But we also have friends, and we're not talking about like the wishful thinking supporters. Like, I wish my mom was there for me. I wish my dad was there. No, it's like, where is your support? Because everybody has some support. And once you know that you are on steady ground and you have some support, then you could like try to figure out what's going on with your heart and your feelings.
Do you feel that God supports you?
Yes, through people.
Mhm.
I think people are very godly,
Mhm.
and also I feel like he's with me on this journey. Like this
Mhm.
is his journey that he put me on, and he's driving. I don't know
Mhm.
where I'm going. I don't know what I'm doing, but God knows what's happening, and like that does give me a certain amount of comfort.
Right. Well, my last question, because the time is just running and I could just sit with you for hours, Dina. You have so much wisdom and so much life experience. It's just, and bravery and courage and love and compassion. Um, I know you said before that Yitzy might be watching this. He might
Yeah.
end up watching this interview of yours.
Yes.
He'll
Yes.
probably be looking for it on his own. So is there
Yes.
something you want to say to Yitzy on this through
I
us?
wanted to. Yes, I want to tell him that I'm really proud of him. Like he is in a jail of his body, and his heart and soul are still free.
Mm.
And he has done such tremendous work in this experience. And I'm really proud of the courage it takes to do that, and faith it takes to do that, persistence. He's really changed the world.
Mm. Wow. Wow. Thank you so much, Dina, for sharing yourself, your story, your
Thank you.
growth, your courage, your bravery, your persistence, your stubbornness. Thank
Stubbornness
you.
and I didn't get to
Stubbornness.
share my sarcasm with you. It didn't come up, but I do have a lot of that too.
And your laughter
Mm,
and your joy. Thank you for
thank you.
sharing it with us and with the world. Thank you for
Thank you
everything that
for
you're
having
doing. And we wish you continued success in handling what you're handling. And the joy should surface very quickly.
me. Amen. Thank you.
Wow, that was such a touching interview with Dina Horowitz. What an incredible woman. She and her husband, Yitzy, both really such incredible people. I really adored her honesty. She did not want to seem more than she was. And she told me before the interview, people often put me up on a pedestal for all these years, 13 years of taking care of Yitzy. And, they romanticize almost the situation and see all the positive in it. And I don't want that to be the interview. I want it to be very real. And I want to show people the good and the bad that we go through. And I think she was so honest in her approach to it. And she was so helpful in sharing the good times and the difficult times. I loved how she explained how there was so much support that she was getting, and she met friends in the situation that she would not have met, and the support of people just holding her. I really, that was a beautiful part of it. That was really so beautiful how people stepped in and really helped. I loved how she explained how her endurance and her getting through it. And though the days are hard, she can look back at the situation and see her growth. And I think so often when we are going through a challenge, we judge ourselves and we're not that compassionate and we think that we're not accomplishing and getting through it properly. But like she does, she takes a step back almost and sees the years going by and how she is surviving and how she has grown from it. I loved how she said the beauty, how she sees the beauty even in her situation, how this is something that is a soul journey, a soul mission, and she sees the mission and the purpose in it, doesn't understand it, but sees it and speaks to God and shows God. And she really connected it beautifully. When a person has that open heart, they can have that relationship with God and they can open their heart up to God and share with God what they are feeling. But it's all part of that getting through it and realizing that for whatever reason you are on some kind of soul mission that you might not understand or appreciate, but that you know is meant to be. If you enjoy watching these interviews, I hope you are subscribed to Chabad.org/extraordinary. Tell us about this interview. What did you like? What did you learn from Dina? And how do you feel about what she shared with us? We are also on all podcast platforms. You can find us on Apple, on Spotify. You can also find us on YouTube, where we have these interviews where you can like our material as well as subscribe to it so you're notified when a new podcast drops. Thank you so much for watching and for being part of this extraordinary community.